Good morning and Shavua Tov. As you can imagine, the world is still in shock. The Jewish world is suffering terribly from this terrible, terrible, tragic event that took place in Meron on Thursday night at Lag BaOmer. And the news and the stories from friends and the texts that we're getting about the funerals that are taking place and the pain and tragic atmosphere that's going on in Israel is really very, very, very painful. But on the other hand, of course, Jews always look for something good, and the unity and the coming together of people to pray together and to join together to remember the lives of these individuals is very powerful too. You know, it's really quite chilling, in fact, that the Talmud tells us that on Rosh Hashanah, when we're judged as individuals, individual people. Hashem looks at each one of our lives. And in order to give an analogy or to explain that, the Talmud says that we're all judged, and it uses this term, Kebnei Meron, like the children of Meron. Now, Meron is the name of this mountain where this tragedy just transpired last week. Now, what does it mean that we're judged like Bnei Meron? So the Talmud's trying to give us an example of what it means to look, what it looks like that we're judged individually. And the commentaries explain that Meron is a very narrow mountain, only wide enough really for one person to climb up or climb down at a time. And Hashem is looking at us and judging us like individuals climbing up or climbing down the mountain of Meron. So when we hear those words and we think about what happened on Mount Meron, it makes us realize, or it makes me think about the fact that not only do we have to look at this in a global sense, like, yes, this terrible tragedy took place and 45 people are dead, but we also have to understand that each one of these people was a universe by themselves, an individual universe. Each one of these people, either they were a child of somebody, a brother, a sister, a brother to somebody, a sibling to somebody, a parent, a father, a friend, and universes have collapsed because of the tragedy that took place. And I think in order to help us really feel that and experience that, I think it's important to think about these individual people and to read the stories. I read this morning a very moving and stirring eulogy that a father gave. There was a boy who died in this event. He had just had his bar mitzvah. His name was Moshe Yedidja Chiyut. And his father eulogized him. Now, his father and his brother, 10-year-old brother, were also severely injured in this event. And they were in the hospital, but they were released from the hospital just in time for Yedidya Moshe's funeral. And his father, in tears and hysterical, said, "This doesn't make sense. This can't be. A father's not supposed to say a eulogy for his 13-year-old son." And he went on to describe this boy, and he said, "Yedidya Moshe, you were obsessed with Torah learning. You learned all day and all night." He said, "I would come into your room at 3 a.m. and turn your MP3 player off because you fell asleep every night listening to Torah classes." And then he said, "Now you're in a new yeshiva." He said, "You're now in the yeshiva of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. You've been accepted into the yeshiva of Rabbi Shimon." He said, "Only the greatest tzaddikim are in that yeshiva. You, Yedidya Moshe, are a Yeled Kodesh, a holy, holy child." And he said, "Don't worry." He said, we're not going to be far away. Your mother and I tonight, we bought plots next to yours in the cemetery, and we will be together either after 120 or maybe sooner when Mashiach comes. Don't worry, we're never leaving you alone. But please," he said, "please, when you're there, daven for your ima and for me and for your siblings." And he said, "Please daven to Hashem to bring the geula, the redemption, as soon as possible. We need Mashiach so we don't have any more suffering and tragedy like this." When you read these eulogies, and he said, of course, he said, and we know this, but we have to realize, he said, we don't know who we have in our midst, in our own families, in our own lives, our children, our parents, our friends, until they're taken away from us. We have to read these stories to really individualize and know and recognize that each one of these people are Kebnei Meron. They're each individuals who had lives, who had families, and whose families will be suffering for a long time. Please also help these families. I've gotten dozens of emails already with links to where I can donate to help these families. Help these families. If you need a link, if you haven't gotten one in the email, send me an email. I'll send you one. These families need help now, and they need our financial support as well as our prayers. So let's be there for them. Let's use this as an opportunity for unity and to show the greatness of the Jewish people, that we can come together as one in these tragic times. Have a great day, everybody.